G'day, the project for today is this multi-axis pepper grinder using the Crushgrind mechanism. It's turned on 3 different axes, so we get this sort of oval shape up the top. Down the bottom it maintains its round. Uses the Crushgrind mechanism. I've already done 3 videos on how to make a pepper grinder using the Crushgrind mechanism, and that might be worth watching, or they might be worth watching if you haven't done one of these before, because I start this project already with all the holes drilled. So keep that in mind. Also, it's not really a beginner's project, so if you want to do a grinder, this is not the one. It's more a project for those who have done a few grinders and want to do something a little bit different. This grinder is quite a long one. This would be perhaps a little 13 inches, that is 320 mil long. The one I'm going to do today is quite a bit shorter, and I would recommend that you start off with a shorter grinder, multi-axis grinder, rather than going for the long one if it's the first time you're doing them. It can be a little bit hairy when you knock, especially the grinder off on its second or its third axis, I should say. Okay, now as I said, I've already done a little bit of work to this. I've drilled the holes in this piece of wood. This is a piece of white cedar. Originally it was 10 inches long, 250 mil by 75 square or 3 inches square. I have drilled the holes. I've turned the spigot on the end here, drilled all the holes, etc. So that's all done. Now, a word about this spigot. The longer you make that spigot, the poorer the grain or the figure will match up ultimately. Because if that gets longer, you're taking more wood off here, and therefore it just doesn't match up as well anymore. Now already it matches up okay, that is the figure or the grain, it matches up okay there, but over here you can see that it's not matching up quite as well. So just keep that in mind. Now I used to turn this square into a round, a step centre as my driving centre. Now here is my step centre, complete with magnet. There it is, that's the step centre. Fantastic driving spurs. If you haven't used one, they are really worthwhile. I would highly recommend the step centres. One of the advantages of using the step centre for this project is that on the end here I have got the imprint of all of those teeth in the end of my timber, and I'm actually going to use 2 of those. I'll just show you which 2. I'm going to use the main centre, the original centre, and then I'm going to come this way and use that centre there, and I'll come the opposite way and use that as my centre there. That tooth mark from the step centre. So it's advantageous having those. If I didn't, what I could do is, while this is on the lathe and spinning around, I could perhaps draw with a pencil a circle in there, and that circle, how big a diameter? It looks about, well, not quite half an inch, a bit bigger than half an inch. I'm going to go millimetres. It is about 17 millimetres in diameter. So I'm going to be knocking this grinder off centre by about 8 millimetres, 7.5 millimetres each way. And as I said before, the third axis gets very exciting. Anyway, we'll see that in a minute. Bring that tailstock up. Notice down here that perhaps I'll just take that away again. Notice down the other end I have got this in the jaws of that sort of chuck. So there's the holes, and those jaws are just going into that first hole in the bottom of my grinder. Tighten that up. It doesn't have to be tightened up too much, because we're going to be turning between centres. And I'm going to bring the tailstock up again. Lock the tailstock off, bring the live centre up, and tighten up my quill. Now when we turn this, what we are going to try and do is maintain, I'll just back off a bit, we're going to try and maintain our grain pattern or our figuring matching up the whole time, and that's going to be particularly important when we knock the grinder off on its first offset. So I'm just going to turn that true. I'm going to turn my lathe down to 0 or 30 and then speed it up to a speed that I like. I just actually listen. I never look at my speed indicator, I just listen. I just want to true that up. I have got some cracks in here which I'm going to have to fill up, but I can hear them just there. I just really need to get that running true. That's all I need to do. I don't want to go too much further than that. It is a cylinder. It's actually quite a little bit wider here, so I just might fix that up. Just a bit wider up there. Now it's not. So it's almost a nice cylinder. And now the fun begins. I might, just to make it easy to match up my grain later on, I might just do a mark there. And I'll do another mark there. Now I've got to work out which way I'm going to knock this off centre, whether the grain, this is the feature grain here, or this is the feature grain. Now what I'm saying is that we've basically got two long sides and then shorter sides. So do you want your figuring in your timber to be here, or will it be over here? Now I tend to have the most spectacular figuring along this longer or wider side, so that is important to think about. So if I want this to be my figuring, then I've got to knock the centres off, one that way and one this way. If I want this to be the feature side, I've got to knock off the centres that way and that way. So I'm going to make this my feature side. So I'm going to knock off the centres that way, as I said, and I'll just show you what I mean. This is the feature side. Look at the end here, I'm going to go that way and that way with my offset. So this will be one of my centres here, just emphasise that. Go through the middle and then out the other side, and this can be my other centre just here, this one here. I'll just make that obvious like that. So we'll make this one my first centre, match up my grain again, and then I'm going to pull up the tailstock and put my centre into that impression there. Now I'll just back that off and I'll show you what I've done with that. There it is there. You can see my second centre, and the third one's going to be over there. As I said before, it is important to keep your grain matched up, the figure in your wood matched up. So I'm going to tighten that up. That is the quill, the live centre, tighten it up so it's pushing that join together. Now this has been knocked off centre, which is why this wasn't, the chores of the chuck wasn't tightened up really hard. It just got a little bit of movement, and you can notice there that it's going to hit the tool rest, so it's going to go like that. There we go. Now this is where the advantage of variable speed lathes comes in. I can just slow my lathe down and then speed things up. And you'll notice that just there the lathe is actually wobbling. Now I don't actually back it off, I don't go slower. If I go faster, for some reason, until it gets really wobbly there, so I'm just going to go about there. I can tell you what the speed is, it's just on 1200 RPM. I can see some ghosting in there, and I'm going to start turning with my spindle gouge. Sorry, this is a roughing gouge. Now what I'm going to do is just lift up my tourist a bit. It's a bit low. It's about at centre height now, and off we go again. So I'm cutting now, and where the cutting edge of my roughing gouge is at its smallest, it's down the bottom of the flute. So all the way down. Down here it's going to remain round, and it's going to start to get an oval shape or elliptical shape just around about here. I'm not pushing hard into the wood. Very important, if you start pushing hard into the wood, you're going to get this chattering going on, so let the wood come onto the tool. Okay, bevel rubbing on the roughing gouge. Let the wood come onto the tool, don't push the tool into the wood. And we don't want to take a lot of wood off. I'm going to speed things up just a little bit more. We don't want to speed things, we don't want to take too much wood off at this point, because you can go too far with this. There's still ghosting there, that's alright. You will need to maintain a bit of ghosting. You're not trying to turn all of that ghosting away. Now I'm going to stop. Let's have a look at that. So this is my feature side here, it gets narrower there and then another feature side there. My pencil lines are still matching up, which is good. Now I can knock it off to the other centre. Back off my quill, and there it is. Here's my next centre. So I just match up those pencil lines again and tighten that up. Now this is where it gets exciting, because look at that, that is spinning way off centre. Tighten that quill up, and I need to tighten that up as well, so this quill doesn't start to rock itself backwards as well I'm turning. Now I'm going to back the lathe right off, the speed right off, and speed up slowly. Now I've never had one of these come apart on me. I hope today is not the day, because I haven't got a face mask on. Normally I would be wearing a face mask. Just sliding backwards and forwards. I'm not putting any shape into this, and that's a good thing, because it's just a straight line running up here. I need to take more wood off up this end and down here. I don't want to take too much off down here, so I gradually get a bigger and bigger cut as I'm heading down the other end. Let's have a look at that. As I say, we don't need to take too much off. Now while I've got this stopped, I'm going to just put a mark there, because I've turned off that other one. That's disappeared. And I'm going to put this back in the centre. So my axis is in the centre. And I am going to get a pencil, and I'm going to mark a circle around the back here, and I'll show you that circle. Now there's the circle that I've just marked on there. Now that circle is going to give me an indication of how much further I need to turn this curve in, because when this curve gets close to there, and when this curve gets close to there, I know that they're basically even on both sides. So that's how I do it. Match up that pencil line again, and I can knock it out into either of those centres, and we're ready to go again. Tighten that up, pushing those two pieces hard together, and off we go again. Just spin that by hand, and we're ready to go. It's really up here that I need to work. Now I'm just going to stop short of the end by a little bit, and then blend all of that in. But by stopping short, I've got a shoulder there, and that shoulder is giving me an indicator of how much wood I've taken off already. So I can see that shoulder there. And as I say, yes, it gives me an indicator of how much wood I've taken off. So I reckon that's about a good 5mm, almost a 1/4 inch. So I'll now take that back to there, turn the lathe off, and see how much closer to that circle I've got. I've got a little bit closer. I'm still a 1/4 inch away, so I'll go a little bit more. Let's see how close we are now to that circle. Okay, quite close. I'll just show you that. So we're in this centre here, which means that this side here is getting closer to the circle, my thickness circle, my indicator. So now I'm going to turn the other side, so I'll knock it off centre the other way. Make sure that line matches up, and off we go. Stop short a little bit. See how that's looking? And I've taken the same amount off both sides, so it's a now matter whether I want to go smaller than this or not. That's what it's looking like there, and I'm quite happy with the shape of that, so I'm going to leave it like that. We're going to get onto some sanding now. So I'm going to put it back in the centre, because when I sand, you can actually sand with it in the centre, but before I do that I'm going to put a bit of shape on the end here. I'm going to grab a spindle gouge to do this. So I can round this over, and that will give me this sort of effect here. I can finish that off later on, but I'll just do a little bit more. Get the lathe going a bit faster. This is softwood, so spin the lathe as quick as possible and you get a cleaner cut. And there we have it. Now we've got to do some finishing, some sanding, and then we've got to, later on I'm going to do these cuts in here, round those two shoulders off. The reason I do that is because when you got it like this, I'll just back that off, the tailstock off a little bit. When I turn that around, that doesn't necessarily match up, although this one's not too bad. So it doesn't necessarily match up perfectly, so what I do is I disguise that by just rounding these shoulders over a little bit. Now I'm going to do some sanding, and I'm just going to initially sand by hand, get a few of these ridges out. This being soft timber means that it will sand quite quickly, and I just want to get these marks out before I go on to sanding with the lathe on. So I've got some 80 grits to cut those ridges, those tool marks back quickly, and then once I've done that I can turn the lathe on and sand with the lathe on. Okay, some 120 grit. I've got a long piece of 120 grit, so it's about so long. I'm going to fold that in half. Lathe going slowly. Now with this sanding process, you are going to round these edges over a little bit, but that doesn't matter because it is part of the overall effect. So these aren't, well, this isn't a ridge along here, it gets rounded over. So I'll just keep sanding here for a little bit, and then we'll come back when I'll finish the sanding. I've got 320 grit sandpaper here, so I've saved you most of the fun of the sanding. And one thing I wanted to show you, well, number one, two things actually. Number one, the way I hold the sandpaper, like so, rather than using your hand. You can, but I find this a really good way to hold the sandpaper. Number two, this is one time where I actually do turn the lathe in reverse to sand back the other way. Sometimes with multi-axis turning, depending on which way you can go, you can be sanding and then it skips over this area, hits the wood, skips over an area. So you can sand one side a bit more than the other, so it doesn't hurt. Well, it can help, I should say, if you can put your lathe in reverse. If you can't, Don't worry about it too much. One thing I haven't sanded is this area down here, the top of the knob, and I've still left its centre in there, which is important. I need to keep that until the last minute. Just going to do some hand sanding, hoping somebody's going to answer that phone. It doesn't hurt with all spindle turning if you can to sand with the grain after you're finished. There we go, that should be enough sanding. Now I'm going to take the knob away and I'm going to round over this shoulder here. So take the knob away, put that aside, grab my big centre, put that in, and that can come up there like that. Spindle gauge, a really easy way to do this, and just a little bit of a rolling over there. Now I've got to determine how much of this shoulder I cut, and I basically go until the shoulder is all the way around, so you can see it is all the way around, and it's just a little bit light on there, so I might do a little bit, but I need to have, looking at this one, the shoulder all the way around and a little bit of a flat around here. So that's where I'm heading with the shoulder. This one just needs a little bit more. It's hard to see where you got to start. There it is there. And a little bit more in through there. That should be enough. And now I sand that. Now with the sanding, I'm going to hold the sandpaper the same way I did to sand the body, the main part of the body, and just like that. And that helps the paper to conform to the shape that I've cut. I'm going to slow the lathe right down, take my tailstock away. This has been, the body's been held in the jaws of that chuck, and I'm just going to sand slowly with a piece of wood across there like so to sand that flat across the top there. I don't need to sand a lot there, that'll do it. And I can take that off and show you what that looks like. There we have it. Now the knob is going to go on there like so. Got another crack here that I might need to fill up, but I'm going to hold this in a wooden chuck. This is the wooden chuck that I normally use. It's got a thread on there, and I've either got a video out or it will be coming on how I cut these threads in the wood to make these sorts of chucks, and they are extremely handy. One of the best things I bought was a thread cutter for the spindle on this lathe. I can now grab the knob that will fit on there nicely, and I can use that to turn the shoulder here, and I can also sand this end and get rid of this section of timber here. Need to get this centre out and put my smaller one in, and that's going to help me. The reason I've kept that is just to help me centre that in this chuck and wind that up. There we go. And I can get that up there like so, and I can roll this over. Now this shoulder needs to sort of look the same as the other one, and especially the same amount of flat in here. So we're going to stop and see, stop there and see how well they match up. Take that out of the way. Oh, I have absolutely nailed that. Very, very lucky there. The flats are basically exactly the same size. Beautiful. I like that when that happens. Okay, so now I can sand this. I'll get my tourist out of the way. Just a little bit of sanding there is all I need, because that was cut cleanly in the first place. And now I can get rid of that knob on the end there. Now that that's cut, I can get some sandpaper onto there and sand that. And then all it requires is some finish. Already done a little bit of that, so that should be enough. And while that knob is on there, I'm going to get my favourite finish, Aussie oil. Get that tool, tailstock out of the way, give this a shake. And I'm just going to drill a bit of that on there like so. Been very impressed with this oil. Put lots on the end grain. This is very porous timber, so lots on the end grain. Let me get this tailstock out of the tourist out of the way. And just finish by rubbing that. Now I'm going to do the base, and we'll have a look at how that is finished up. And there is my final product. I'm very happy with that. That's the end view of it, with that elliptical shape. And I just can't get over how good this stuff is, this Aussie oil. It's been absolutely brilliant. I applied that finish about 5 minutes ago and it's already touch dry, and I can put another coat on there, but one coat is looking absolutely brilliant. If you want something a little bit different as far as your grinders go, there you go, the multi-axis grinder. Hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like my Facebook page, U-Turn with Brendan Stemp, and subscribe to my newsletter on uturn.tv. That's it. Safe turning. I'll see you another time.